Welcome to the July 2025 edition of Trustmasters Monthly. It's almost impossible to believe that it's July of 2025 already, yet here we are. Today, we're joined by two incredibly special guests here to talk about a concept that I think is becoming more and more pressing, more and more pertinent to the field today, particularly those organizations that are handling and managing multiple assessments as part of their compliance strategy. Our first guest is Stephanie Euler-Rankin. Steph, thank you for joining us. So glad to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
Yes, ma'am. Our second guest today is Stephen Ferretti. Stephen, again, thanks for being here.
Of course. Nice to be here, Patrick.
Yep. And today we're going to talk about a few different things, topics that might, at least initially, not necessarily seem connected, but we'll see through the course of dialogue, at least our expectation as we'll see through the course of dialogue, how these different influences, these different pressures that you're likely feeling actually connect. First, we're going to talk in general about challenges that compliance teams and organizations are facing today. Next, we'll talk about, in that same environment, in that same context, the power of audit management tools and where we're really seeing benefit be derived through the use of audit management tools. Lastly, we know we've got pressure. We know we're using tools to get things done. The last thing that we really want to articulate for you and ensure that you understand is that choosing a tech-enabled audit partner is so critically important to you actually realizing the value of your compliance program. That is, partnership has to be top of mind as you're thinking about taking the next step toward driving your strategy to fruition. Now, Steph, Stephen, as I think about what we're saying today and some of the conversations I've been having, we're saying that compliance teams for organizations are really being driven to do more and more with less and less. In large part, compliance teams are overwhelmed in some cases, and that might not be the right characterization, but I feel it's fairly close. Steph, can you tell us just a little bit from your perspective about some of the challenges you're hearing and you're seeing as it relates to dealing with internal compliance with those teams?
Absolutely. I think resource management is always just a challenge, really. Whenever we're talking about this, it seems like we're living in an age where the number of audits that an organization needs is growing faster than the ability to hire people to manage those audits. And I think we see that on our side as well. We have a growing framework breadth of products that are happening, and it's largely driven by advances in technology, specifically AI. Patrick, you spend a lot of time talking specifically about AI audit products, whether that be through the ISO realm, AI audit card, different things that are coming up as the days and weeks pass. It seems like there are new standards and new modifications to the existing frameworks. That's a lot of stress on an audit team, and whether that be an audit team internally to A-LIGN, an audit team internally to our customers. That's a big driving demand that is hard to keep up with. And at times it's harder to pace your resource management to handle those audits than it is to grow the audits, especially when you have customers demanding and needing to see audits from you to cover risks that are associated to new technologies like AI.
And Steph, it's amazing in so many ways as we see the number of external third-party standards increase and that pressure really being applied to organizations. As I think about resources, there's the reality that a certain number of people can only do so much, but then there's also the reality that a certain number of people are only going to have so much expertise. New standards are very, very hard to understand and implement. And so I do think about the backpedaling, almost harried nature that many internal compliance teams are feeling just because the market is changing so quickly.
Yeah, market demand, market change is overstimulating, right? It's hard to keep it all organized. And audit itself can be challenging to keep organized. I think, for customers that have a lot going on. They have many controls. And when a framework changes, a new framework comes out, it's really interesting to see the growing need for everyone to keep everything hyper organized. And I think that that's where technology comes into play. I think that's where our software comes into play. Ascend is a great platform that is able to keep people organized, whether it is for existing frameworks and rolling that forward year after year, and watching it evolve year after year, because I think that's the key part, is really understanding where the growth factors come from, what remains constant, and what really needs to be tweaked or understood really from an overall audit management perspective. It's interesting to be able to use technology in that to help guide you and manage it and keep it organized.
And Steph, what I love about what you're saying is for years, you've talked about this idea of audit operations, wherein operations are made up of people, processes, and technology. And I think, that interplay can be a little bit hard to see when you're not in it day over day. But one of the areas that we do see lots of organizations focus, because it feels like a lifeline, is around technology, particularly with the audit management tools. And Stephen, along those lines, we're seeing a proliferation of different audit management tools, but for our listeners, for our viewers today, there might not necessarily be an understanding of what these tools do and how our tool, Ascend in particular, can help them. Maybe you'd care to tell us just a little bit about what we have going on with our audit management tool?
Yeah, of course. So I think, Stephanie, hit the nail on the head with just the breadth in the market, right? So just even today, you have your SOC 2s, your ISO 27001, CMMCs, FedRAMP, HITRUST. Patrick, I know you talk a lot. We're getting into 42001s, and then just extent on past that. At the other end of the spectrum, so there's a lot of breadth there, but on the other end of the spectrum, you need the depth, right? So you need a company like A-LIGN, where you have the service leaders in each one of those sectors that has the depth of knowledge, because you can't be a generalist across all of these aspects. Where technology really comes to play, and particularly within our company, is it is the generalist, right? It's bridging that gap between the technical experts of each one of those service lines and allowing our customer to kind of have one holistic picture along the journey. And we really do that in a couple of ways. So the first and foremost, and one of our biggest feedback from our customers, is reducing the duplicate tasks, right? So if I'm doing an ISO 27001 and a SOC 2, I don't want, and there's 90% overlap on the evidence. I don't want the same request twice every single time, right? So we have a proprietary data model where we deduplicate across all of our service lines. And we use AI plugging and playing there to make sure that you get kind of one pane of glass. But in the back end, that's actually separating to those subject matter experts, and then we're closing the loop between our people with that technology. So I think that's the first and most important aspect of it. The second is leveraging the historical information, right? So if I did a SOC 2 last year and I'm rolling for it this year, I can actually leverage that historical information. Or if I'm adding on a service within a time frame that the evidence is still valid, again, you can leverage that historical information so that you're not, similarly to before, not kind of doing the same task twice. We also do a lot. We have a lot of cool features like automated evidence matching, where you can kind of bulk upload your evidence and it'll automatically match to requests. And then I think the big important thing there too, Patrick, that hit on your initial point is like, where do we separate along a lot of GRC providers? Mm-hmm. We actually are at the audit portion of things. So you can still use your Vantage Radas. We actually plug and play with them really nicely. We have a whole partner network with them where you can actually prep and do all of your work within Vantage Rada. Our auditors will work out of Ascend and will relay the information between the two products, audit forward, et cetera. And then we even take it a step further, right? So if let's say you're running your compliance program, you're a large organization. When I used to work at Lockheed Martin, right? They had their own proprietary software. You can actually leverage our API. So work where you want and then push the data so that our experts can actually go through that audit process within Ascend, and then you'll have the report on the back end. So I think, it's less of a question of kind of how we compete with these competitors. It's right. More how we actually make that bridge to those other customer or other GRC providers, and then bridge to our actual expert people as well.
And Stephen, it sounds like what we're doing is allowing people whoever those people may be, auditors, organizations, whatever the case, we're allowing people to operate inside their native environment. Is that right?
Correct. The big thing for us is work where you want, and we'll bring a compliance to you, right? So it's similar in kind of the technical world, right? Like your DevOps stack, we look at it as kind of a compliance ops stack. We'll fit in your compliance ops stack to
Cool.
be as efficient for your company. Correct.
How cool. And Steph, as I think about this from an audit perspective, again, people, process, technology make the operations. From a technology perspective, it sounds like the platforms, especially SCEND, have established themselves as tools of value. From an audit perspective, are there other things that need to be considered, or how does that fundamentally change how we execute what we traditionally think of as an assessment or audit?
Sure. I mean, I think that just touching on a really easy to understand point is duplicative evidence requests, controls that map to multiple frameworks, or even evidence that maps to multiple controls within a single framework. It could be also across multiple frameworks, but SOC 2 is a great example. There are many pieces of evidence that match to multiple controls, and being able to streamline that for our clients and our audit teams, really, that's an important factor, right? Knowing where evidence is going, which controls it's mapping to on the back end, and from the consumer side, from the client's perspective, uploading that one time makes life so much easier. And then taking it a step further, not just uploading the evidence one time, but also being able to see in real time, has the auditor reviewed it? What is the auditor's feedback? Can I communicate back and forth with the auditor here? Or can I delegate certain requests to people within the organization? And I think, I hear a lot of feedback about that. And I think at A-LIGN, we almost overlook it. We take it for granted in a way because it's the way that we've worked now for such a good period of time, and we're leaning into better and bigger enhancements in the platform. But it's the simple things in life, right? Like, we can't forget those items either. Just the basic principles of SCEND and how everyone, both from the client side and our audit team side, utilizes the platform in a very simplistic way. You think back 10 years ago, we did not manage audits the way that we do today. We were sending, we were waiting on, packages in the mail, or we were waiting on different secured zip files and different things to come through. It's not the same as it once was. And, 10 years before that, it's a completely different story as well. So it's interesting to kind of think about the history of the way that you manage audit, and going from trunks to disks, or zip files and emails back and forth, and secure sites, and taking it all the way to a secure platform like SCEND, and being able to do so many things within that platform, but still remembering the simple things in life. The status management, being able to delegate, I hear so much from our clients. And thinking back, to our previous pain point, was sometimes it's hard to find enough people to man the ship for all of these frameworks. And through the SCEND platform, being able to delegate responsible parties for different requests and divide and conquer is also something that's really important. And then if you have turnover within your organization, to Stephen's point, being able to look back at evidence that was utilized last year to have an idea of, okay, this is where we were going, this is the direction we were heading, this looks familiar to me, I'm able to go pull this evidence and meet the request for the auditor. I think that that's really, really important. And there are more changes that are coming with that in the future too, that give you even faster turnaround and feedback. So I think it's really exciting to think about where we're going, but I think it's also just important in general to remember not many years ago, the way we were doing things and the simple things in life, are really important and impactful.
Yeah, and that being said, maybe a question for both of you. And Steph, I think you're probably a little bit closer to this, but Stephen, I welcome your feedback. Guys, we do have an opinion, a vision for how audit or complicated audit should be driven, because this is what we do. And so our perspective is fundamentally different than our listeners. Our listeners have their core business. And as much as I don't like it, audit is not typically something people volunteer and sign up for, and not necessarily something that they go willingly. And so in what you're saying, are there areas that our customers legitimately have a reason to think differently about how they're approaching their own audits? In other words, what is the stinking thinking, for lack of better words, that organizations have about audit today?
Yeah. I think that that's interesting. I always say, like, I didn't really sign up for a career where people like ran from me whenever I showed up. So I never dreamt of that when I was in my college accounting and audit courses. But I do think that, it's interesting. The platform helps bridge the gap and create almost more of a consultative approach, because you're giving constant feedback. And
Yes.
I think that makes my life better. I think that it makes my life easier. I think it makes me I always say this, I always tell my mother-in-law this: adults don't like surprises. Quit surprising people. We all want to know what's coming at us as adults. And also, like I tell my children this, bad news doesn't age well. So just rip the Band-Aid off and let's talk about it. And let's see if we actually understand it. And the platform lets us do those things. It doesn't take away the human touch of it. We still get to hop on calls and meet clients in person and, interact with everyone and understand what the business is actually doing, and the risks that are relevant to the business, and understand where controls are happening. But it also gives us a very quick and easy way to communicate with our clients and bridge the gap and let them know what's coming their direction. I think that just really helps create more of a consultative platform for us as audit teams. And I hope clients see that, and I hope they feel that. And I really, truly think that they do, because, based on conversations that I have with clients in interim audit periods, I have a lot of those. In fact, I talk to more clients at this point in my career during their interim audit period than I do during their actual, end of audit review period, where it's fieldwork time. And I think that speaks volumes too. They're looking at A-LIGN largely because of SCEND as, a consultant. And I think that really comes down to, like, whenever we're talking about framework mapping and control crosswalks and things along that nature of, I already do a SOC 2 today. How many more controls do I have to do for a HIPAA? And, I already do these other frameworks. What is the leap to go to the next framework? And how much of this work that I already do carries forward? What's my lift? And I think that really bridges the gap between the previous scary auditor coming to slap me on the wrist versus more of a consultative, partner-based approach that we know is true. We live that and breathe that every day in and day out. But I think that the platform helps bridge that gap.
And Steph, you mentioned,
and just I was just going to touch on Stephanie's point. I mean, the data shows this, right? When we talk to all of our customers and we're go above and beyond just the NPS score, and we get feedback, almost, a large percentage of the feedback is around our people, and they don't even refer to our people as auditors. It's always partners. They guided us through this journey, having been on the other end of it previously in like an education startup where you got to get compliant all the time with whatever standard. It really is amazing to see how our people, with that depth of knowledge and in the technology kind of bridging it together, to Stephanie's point, actually work with them to build out their compliance framework. I look at it in the technical world, how important it is when you're first starting a software company, choosing your cloud provider, your architecture, your languages, right? Because it might not be a huge differentiator 6 months down the road, but 4 to 5 years down the road, when you're scaling and you're at that point, all of those decisions are going to come back, right?
Yes.
They're going to be net positive or net negative. You might have to scratch and start from over again. I look at A-LIGN as really a solid architecture when you might just be starting with a SOC 2, but in 4 to 5 years down the road, to Stephanie's point, you might have an expert that's going to guide you on the FedRAMP journey as your company has shifted. And the technology is going to bridge that along the way slowly, so that you're kind of taking baby steps, crawling, walking, and running by year 5.
And what I love about what you both said, Steph, you mentioned a consultative approach. Stephen, you mentioned partnership. So for our listeners, just a couple quick definitions so that we can be plain as we talk about these things. So ISACA says governance is a value creation process. And to create value is to recognize desired outcomes at optimized risk and cost. So if we're going to create value, we have to create what we want while we're optimizing risk and cost. We also know that partnership is creating value via shared resources. Some of mine, some of yours. We work together on a common goal. ultimately we create value for everyone. And so, Steph, as you were talking, I was picturing the old image of an auditor sitting across the table from someone, essentially grilling them. I mean, I think that's the concept that most people have. I was saying us sitting at the same side of the table, looking at where we're going. And that really is an opportunity for organizations that take partnership, particularly partnership with their audit firm, very seriously. And through that, Stephen, as you mentioned, we have appropriate tools, staff, we've got appropriate people and processes to bring to bear real value creation for those that choose to partner with us. Which I think is absolutely amazing. Now, Stephen, I do want to backtrack just a moment and hit on something that you mentioned with SCEND. And I don't know that you really unpack this, but just to ask, you mentioned AI in conjunction with SCEND. Is that something maybe you could talk a little bit more about, at least conceptually?
Yeah, so currently our customers, so we use AI in a lot of areas of Ascend, but one of the most customer facing areas is kind of the automated request management. So this is accessible via our API, like if you're working within another tool, or just on our bulk upload. Or if you upload evidence to a request and then the AI behind the scenes says, hey, I think it also satisfies this request as well. So one of our features right now is automated evidence request matching. And what that will do, like I said, you upload your evidence, it will scope out the request, and it will give you some feedback as well, some generic feedback around how it met that request, or where it may have met that request, but may be a little bit lacking on that request. Now, that's not the actual control, that's just at that general request level. We will be releasing a feature coming up soon around October called AI First Pass, where when you get to a threshold of evidence submitted, we'll give you kind of a score of where we believe you're at. And again, this isn't the actual audit taking place. It's just kind of, again, creating that feedback loop between our knowledge and where you currently stand so that you get kind of the iterative feedback as you're going along your journey. We see AI really from a larger vision perspective as a tool to bridge our customers with our people and allow our experts to, again, Patrick, going back to your point, continue to sit on the same side of the table, continue to spend the time kind of guiding our customers through that journey instead of being on the other team, hitting the ball back against them.
Yeah, and then to that end, even with these automated tools in place, the automated algorithms, there's still a human in the loop in this process, which are the people that we're connecting our customers to via technology. And so, Steph, really quickly, just to validate, our auditors are always driving the decisions that are being made through the assessment, regardless of what tools are being employed.
That is correct. They are. To Stephen's point, this is helping clients ahead of the curve of time where it's not time for field work yet, but it is prep time, and they can have a quick glance at, confidence intervals and different things along those lines. At the end of the day, we still have field work. We still have auditors with very deep knowledge, reviewing the pieces of evidence, ensuring that they meet the controls appropriately. I think that this goes into using AI for good and using it appropriately, allowing our audit teams to really dive into the deep materials that we know. There's a lot of gray in audit, and nobody's business is the same as even their competitors, and I think that that's an important thing to understand. The nature of controls is not black and white always, because it depends on the business that you're running. It depends on the industry that you're in, and a risk for one may not be the same risk for another. And understanding that risk profile of each control, that is a matter of gray. That is why we have experts that are assessing those controls, understanding not just the control itself and the evidence that matches to it, but understanding how that control fits into the overall environment and the control set as a large set of controls, not just an individual. I really can't imagine any time in the future that we get to the point where we don't need an auditor to still validate those. So these features are really focused on helping the clients work more efficiently, trying to cut down on the feedback loop that they have to experience, or, especially maybe for the first time that they've gone through an audit. I think that will be a very beneficial piece for them, understanding that they, they can upload a grouping of evidence and it will help match it to every request that it's relevant to. And I think that that's an amazing piece because I know from the other end of an audit, it's probably a little bit overstimulating to see that request list for the first time. It's not an item of five requests. It is a little bit longer than that. So understanding that you can gather some evidence and put it in and really let the technology work in your favor and say, hey, you applied it to these four requests, but did you know that there's a fifth or a sixth request that actually could include this item as well? So I think it's really cool, but it's not going to take away the auditor by any stretch.
Ever. And at a high level, as best you can, as we think about how we opened the session today, with just acknowledging that compliance teams are overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, very few resources to help get those things done. If you had high-level coaching for an organization that has an existing compliance team that is underwater, high-level coaching about what to do now to get yourself out of the hole, what might that be?
I think it's find the right partner. Honestly, like you're the company you keep. I always think about this whenever I'm, trying to decide the right partners for A-LIGN as a business as well. But if you are struggling, is it truly all an internal problem, or is it partially partner based? Like, can you find a partner that helps bridge the gap between your existing control set and keeping that organized and growing that control set and streamlining the audit process, because it is a heavy season to bear through. I understand that, and a lot of organizations are going through that at their fiscal year end as well. So there are other complicating factors within their organizations. People are tied up. There are a lot of resources that are involved in meeting metrics for the year, closing financial audits, closing tech audits. There are so many different things that go into that. And I think that, if you can find a partner that takes some of that burden off, does consider people, process, and technology, that's probably the best way to get yourself out of deep water, in my personal opinion, because I think that for me, it's one of the more entertaining parts of my job is that, that's fun to be able to do, to go in and help an organization elevate their process from a spot that's burdensome and it's not enjoyable, to really watch them blossom into an organization that becomes a partner of A-LIGN, and they see us as a partner as well. And they understand, wow, we were working harder, not smarter. Find the partner that will work smarter with you and make your life easier, because not every partner is built the same. We know that. We're obviously biased, but I think your point earlier, Patrick, people, process, and technology, it's 2025. I think that we're past the point of being able to think about audit without all three of those pieces in play. So find the right partner, keep technology in mind, keep people and process in mind too, because none of those three things are great without the others. You really have to have fine-tuned systems.
So it's like for overall health, we know we have to eat, sleep, move. If we do any one of those in an imbalanced way, our overall health suffers. The same is true with operations, be they compliance operations or operations otherwise. Steph, I love your point about partnership. And for those listeners that might be sitting there thinking, well, that's great, but it's not going to work for me. Again, we've been at this a very long time and have seen time and time again how impactful real partnership can be. So I encourage you to keep looking if you don't feel you have the partner that actually has your best interest at heart, that is looking to create value with you today.
So something Stephen said earlier, Patrick, he kind of led to the point of, we'll meet you where you are from a technology standpoint. If you want to work on a certain platform, we're happy to work where you want to work. We will also meet you where you are in your journey. And I think that we've done a really good job of segmenting different models of service so that we can meet you where you are. You can be a startup and we can help provide solutions for some of the items that are in your current wheelhouse. We can also meet you where you are if you are more of an enterprise Fortune 500 company. We can meet you where you are because of those different service models, because of our technology. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. So to your point, Patrick, I would just rebuttal. Don't feel like you're not in the right spot to reach out to us, because we will meet you where you are. We can help you in the journey, whether you're at the beginning or you've been traveling this road for quite some time now and you're looking to enhance the way that you operate or streamline or even expand. I'm sure many listeners are at the point of expansion now with different changes in tech and different audit frameworks that are rolling out. So don't hesitate to call us. We can meet you where you are from a tech perspective and from a service model perspective.
We absolutely can. And while there will be lots of assessment, there will be no judgment, no judgment whatsoever. Stephen, if I could maybe phrase or frame a similar question to you, and that is for compliance teams that are listening, that are beginning to evaluate either GRC platforms or audit management platforms, are there certain things that you think are most important, that you feel are most relevant to helping them make a good decision about the tool that will work for them?
Yeah, of course. And I sit on both sides of this, right? We obviously go through compliance journeys as an Ascend product. And I would say the most important thing too, when you're looking for a partner, is one that knows their identity. I see this a lot in the market, like a lot of companies, they're kind of sporadic in where they stand in the place. We really know, A-LIGN really knows their identity, where we're on that, once the evidence is submitted, we are the auditor and in helping you guide through your journey. The second most important thing I would say is all three legs of the people, the process, and the technology are important. The technology is really important because that company is actually doing it themselves. They're almost like a player coach, right? They're going through these same technical revolutions and evolutions. I mean, AI coming up, right? We're having to move as fast and as quickly. So we can actually relate to that. Somebody like one of our partners can hop on with our engineers and kind of relate to a customer journey. So it's very relatable as well. So I think all three legs are very important. The people at our company are obviously the most important, but then those two other legs definitely make our people better. So I think it's important to have all three legs.
Stephen, thank you. And Stephen, as we approach concluding our session today, approach wrapping up our call, are there any things that we haven't talked about today that you think are absolutely imperative for this audience to walk away with? Anything that we left undiscussed?
Yeah, we just touch on, we work with the GRC providers is obviously kind of where we'll meet you where we work. We also plug and play with GCP, Azure, AWS, Know-Before, some technologies that we can automatically pull evidence and get a lot of requests. So I just wanted to kind of add that point as well. I think we kind of breezed over that. And we'll continue to expand. To Stephanie's point, we listen to our customers. We want, like, any new customer becomes a part of our product roadmap. So just touch that as well.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And Steph, it looks like.
Yeah, that's exactly. Oh, yep. That's exactly what I was going to add, actually, is like, what you've heard today is a great advancement from where we've been, but it's not the end of the road of where we're going. So I think that that's always important to understand as well. One thing that I think we are phenomenal at this organization is changing and evolving and keeping up with the demands and the needs of our customer base, our auditor base. I think that we do not shy away from change at all here. And I love that about this organization. I think it keeps us on our toes, and it keeps us evolving with our clients and as their needs evolve. So that's what I was going to add is you've heard some great things today, but don't feel like that's the end of the road for us. There are things that will happen in the next 5 years that aren't even on my radar right now, but I'm confident will happen because I've lived this journey now for quite some time. So I think that it's exciting to know that we are solving problems. And I think that that's a really cool thing about Ascend too, because we have built that internally, and that is something that is managed internally. Ascend's customer base is our client base and our auditor base. And I think that that's a really cool thing. I love that I get to influence that on a daily basis. I love that our clients get to influence that, and it's not the end of the road. So I look forward to the next 5 years of advancements in the Ascend platform. So Stephen, sorry for all the future work that you have to do.
But thank you, just the same. You just the same.
That's right. Stephen and I work very closely together, leading services. So I didn't mention this earlier in the call, but I oversee quite a few of our service groups here at A-LIGN. And Stephen is one of my closest allies in working together on what the audit teams need and the feedback that we get from clients. So I can give him a hard time, but we work together quite often.
Partnership. That's the theme for today, partnership.
Partnership.
That said, to our listeners, before we transition to Q&A, just to acknowledge again, as we led the session, it's complicated and things are hard, particularly when you're working on meeting the objectives of someone else's goals. That really does become burdensome and overwhelming without appropriate guidance and leadership. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us should you have questions. We're always happy to help build into whatever strategy it is you need to create to really create value for your organization through your compliance program. So again, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Now, from a Q&A perspective, it looks like we got a couple of tech questions. So Stephen, if I could maybe ask you directly, and Steph, maybe the first one could work with you as well. We have a question from the audience. How does SCEND ensure the quality and consistency of audit reports? Is that even something of concern?
Yeah, it is for me, because I deliver the report and we put our name on those, and something that we're very proud of, that we obviously spend so much time invested in ensuring that we are completing a quality audit. SCEND comes into play there from a processing standpoint and ensuring that we are outputting the things that we've tested appropriately. We do get a SOC audit on SCEND as well. So Stephen alluded to this earlier, but SCEND is SOC 2. They do have SOC 2, so it is attested to that. But I think SCEND creates better quality. To take this one step deeper, it creates better quality, it creates better consistency across frameworks, across different controls. It's taking out a lot of manual administrative tasks, like, duplicating the same sentences and manual writing of reports over from one criteria to another in a SOC report. We're tagging those in on the backside of the control and understanding that it's meeting the criteria holistically from one criteria to the next, but it's also taking away the administrative burden of actually manually typing that into a Word document. We're not doing that anymore. And that is creating a better end product of, that's cleaner. It's a neater, it's a better presentation of a report. It's also better consistency because we're ensuring that our clients are, seeing everything that's going in. And I think that ultimately is a greater output. Stephen, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
No, that's pretty much spot on. And I think just like SCEND by the numbers. So just so you can understand kind of the amount of data and projects that we've gone through, right? So we have roughly 19,000 projects have gone through SCEND, almost 5 million pieces of evidence, and 30,000 users. And so just using all of that expertise and building this platform out from start to finish, to Stephanie's point, like the whole process by the time you get to the report, because the report is really the downstream result of everything that happened before, correct?
Right.
So it's really the streamlining and the efficiency of that entire process as you're going through it, and creates that very quality report. And we've gotten to be able to streamline both by working with our amazing people, and then the amount of data and telemetry that we have been able to process and how people use the system from those numbers.
Thank you, guys. And then Stephen, a follow-up question, and you hit on some of this, but we do have a question from the audience about the key features of SCEND that differentiate it from other audit management platforms. Are there 2 or 3 key things that you are just so proud of that we really need to sing it from the mountaintops?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost is the deduplication. Although it sounds simple, it's very complicated from a data structure, right? So it depending on, let's say you have 16 different service lines, you're actually talking about 16 factorial from a mathematical standpoint, different information request lists that you can actually process and have different combinations of those. So, there was a lot of thought, and it kind of goes back to that earlier point of developing the architecture right from the get-go. I've seen this tried to be emulated by many other, because I think this is asking about, other how it differentiates many other players. And not that nobody has done it, but I don't think anybody's done it with the, over 300 subject matter experts that work at our company. Again, like by having those people, we're able to really develop that perfect data model from the ground up. The second one, we talked on this a bunch. I probably don't want to, continue to iterate around this, but I think the general concept is we come to where you work, right? And we play and partner with all of these providers. And we're really that entity that's bridging the gap between the GRCs, where your evidence lies, our amazing experts, and kind of facilitating that process. And then third, we have a bunch of amazing AI features. We talked on this, but I just want to go back to what Stephanie said. It's the simple basics. It's the fact that we've really spent a lot of time on just the request management, right? And the communication around request management. A lot of times people forget about the important core aspects, and the way that our communication and commenting and tagging is designed, and notifications to our auditors, so you get immediate feedback. It's bridging the gap between the auditor and the customer. And so I would say that's probably the third most important. It's just those core concepts that we've spent 6 years literally looking at how people are communicating and trying to create efficiencies around there, and listening to customer feedback around those aspects.
And for that last point in particular, just to clarify for our viewers, this is I thought I submitted that, or, hey, what version of this document are you actually looking at? That's not what I sent you. All those questions, all those trivial administrative back and forths that cost waste and cost more stress, add burden to the process. That's exactly what Stephen is talking about, remedying, addressing, controlling through the SCEND platform itself. And Stephen, maybe a roadmap question. So Steph, you mentioned that SCEND does carry a SOC 2 attestation. Stephen, we do have a question from the audience. On the roadmap somewhere, do you think we'll be pursuing ISO 42001 or some other sort of assurance mechanism around the use of AI tools?
100%. And that is slated on our roadmap. And I think we have, I know somebody who's got a lot to say around there. His first name is Patrick. So we're in good company around that, but that will definitely be on our roadmap moving forward.
Well, Stephanie, Stephen, again, thank you so much for making space to come speak with our audience today. To our viewers, thank you for investing your time. I will close us with saying partnership is something you deserve. If you don't currently feel that you're operating in a partnership that serves you well, reach out. We're happy to meet you. Steph, to your point, we'll meet you where you are and help you get to where you want to be. But again, thank you all so much. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Please hang on for just a few minutes after the session to fill out a quick survey. Let us know if we're doing this right, if we need to improve, what you really want to hear about. And we can't wait to see everyone in August. So we'll see you next month for the August session of Trustmasters Monthly. Thank you all.